So up until a year ago, I had no idea what a novella was. So when I read Brandon Sanderson's The Emperor's Soul, I was not expecting such a banger of a story like his other works. I really should have known better. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm JJ the Bearded Bookworm, and today we're going to be talking about two shorter works from Brandon Sanderson, The Emperor's Soul and The Hope of Elantris. I would describe The Hope of Elantris as kind of a deleted scene from the main book, Elantris. I think Brandon Sanderson's actually come out and said he cut that from the book just to help with pacing for the novel overall, but he went back and refined some stuff and rewrote some stuff and then released it later on. Matisse was a girl who was an Elantrian, and during the big climax of Elantris, it kind of follows her and her journey of protecting these children in Elantris during the big final battles. And with some cameos from Raoden and Serene and the Seon, whose name is Ash. That's the name. So I don't really have a lot to say other than that, other than I did really enjoy it. You know, it's a very action-packed. It's only like 30 or about 30 pages or so. But because it takes place during the climax of the main novel with a lot of the big battle stuff going on, it's definitely very action-packed. So it's very quick. It's a very quick read. When Brandon Sanderson was dating his wife, his wife, she was a school teacher, and at the time, Elantris was the only book that was published, I believe. Maybe Mistborn was published as well, but this girl that was in his now wife's class was obsessed with Elantris. She loved Elantris so much so she did a book report, and not only just did like a summary, but also made like graphs showing the different aeons and what they meant, and you know, kind of like a map and who's the important people. Basically just extremely detailed. And at the time, she had no idea that her teacher was dating the author of her favorite book. So her teacher showed it to Brandon. Brandon was really touched, and at the time he was still a very small author, so things like this he wasn't really used to. Nowadays it's extremely commonplace for him. But that student's name was Matisse, and so when he ended up writing this short story, he actually named the main character after Matisse. So just a little fun fact about, you know, the story. Like I said, I don't have a lot of more like critique or anything. I can say I'm glad that it was taken out. While I was reading Elantris, I did in the back of my mind be like, what's going on with everybody else in Elantris? You spent all this time, you know, naming these people and, you know, all these other kind of side characters, but then in the big climax, they're kind of just put off to the side because it's just about the three main characters. So it was nice to have that deleted scene kind of where you're seeing what happened elsewhere in the story. So the other story that we're going to be talking about is The Emperor's Soul. Now this is that novella that I was talking about where I didn't have any idea what to expect. I've read some short stories because of school and whatnot, and some of them are really good, but most of them are super boring, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Let me just start off by saying I was impressed. So The Emperor's Soul follows a main character named Shai. Now Shai is a forger who is a magic user that can kind of alter inanimate objects as well as people through her magic called forgery. Shai broke into the palace to steal a painting, was captured, and actually betrayed by the Emperor's Fool, who is actually Hoid. We'll get into Hoid later with a little Cosmere awareness alerts. So Shai is taken into prison and then is brought before the kind of leaders of this kingdom, or empire, I guess, and is basically given a task to say, hey, we're going to kill you, or you can do this favor for us. The emperor had survived an assassination attempt, and by doing so, the surgeons, through resealing which is kind of like physical magic. They were able to repair his body, but he was effectively brain dead. There was nothing. He was awake. Basically, he was just lying in his bed, completely, blank, nothing going on, and just staring at the ceiling. These leaders of this council want Shai to basically recreate his soul to put into him through forgery, which in this specific kingdom and the way that they look on forgery is as taboo as it gets. They're even constantly, degrading her and kind of, talking about how much of a waste her gifts as a forger are because she's using them to steal things and whatnot. But they want her to now recreate the Emperor's soul. And so the story basically just follows Shai stuck in this kind of room, prison cell type thing as she's trying to recreate this soul. So one thing I did like about the story is because of the fact that, one, it's very short, it's 110 pages, but the character count is extremely limited. You have Shai, you have Gautona, you have the rival to Gautona, and then the other kind of unnamed leaders of the council, as well as the Emperor. You have the Blood Sealer. I don't know if they actually name him by name. And then then you have a couple random people that are kind of mentioned, here and there, guards and whatnot. But, those are super minor characters. The sheer fact that there was such a limited cast meant that those characters got such a great chance to shine. You really got to know Shai. You really got to know Gautona. Ironically, you actually get to know about the Emperor quite a bit because she's trying to get to know who he was in order to restore his soul. A couple things I didn't like, which are kind of, these are more frivolous critiques, is I didn't like that it was so short. By the time we got to the end, it was kind of like, let's just tie the nut bow and be done. And I don't like that. Recently a couple of these stories that I've been reading, they're kind of like in the very last 5-10% of the book. They just kind of spend it to quickly tie up the story. And although the story was super developed, it got done and I wanted to be like, I want to know more. I want to keep following these, which I guess in a story is good because now it's like, okay, what's next? I want to continue on this journey. So I don't know if that was a critique or not because I just turned around of saying it was a good thing. Anyway, that wraps up the two side stories that relate to Elantris and Cell as a planet in the Cosmere. So we're going to talk about a couple Cosmere aware things from Elantris, the Emperor's Soul, and Hope of Elantris. Not really Hope of Elantris, because I didn't really pick up anything there. So, the one small thing in the Emperor's Soul that I thought was interesting. So, I've read the Stormlight Archive, and in there you learn about the three realms. You have the physical realm, the cognitive realm, and the spiritual realm. Across the Cosmere, there's a very small list of people that actually know about the three different realms. And apparently, in the Emperor's Soul, we find out that Shai's people are very well aware of that. At one point, she's talking with Gautona and talking about how the fact that a wall or a painting or something has a physical cognitive and a soul. And basically you're able to affect the physical realm by changing the spiritual and cognitive aspects of that object, which is just we'll get into as we get into Stormlight Archive. We'll talk about those 3 realms a lot more, but just something to keep in mind if you're reading along or reading other Cosmere books over the course of this year. Keep in mind that there is 3 different realms, and if anybody talks about that, they probably are a little bit more Cosmere aware than others. Next, we're going to be talking about Hoid. Now, Hoid is the character that kind of is the Nick Fury, the one that's kind of tying all the stories together. He pops in almost all of them. Some of the short stories he is not in because of the fact that such a short story that he's just not worked in. But any of the big major events over the Cosmere, he tends to show up. In Elantris, we see him named Hoid as one of the beggars that is helping Serene run weapons into Elantris before the restoration of Elantris. And I was very sad to find out I didn't have the 10-year anniversary of Elantris, so I didn't actually read this, but there was a little kind of like postscript to the epilogue where you see Hoid go up to the pool, the shard pool, kind of up above Elantris, and expecting himself to become an Elantrian, and it's not actually the case. And he had actually made a deal with a Skaze, which is the opposite version of a Seon. Shard pools, if you're unaware, are one of the ways that characters are able to go from planet to planet. On Cell, there's 2 different shards, Devotion and Dominion, and Hoid is using one of their pools to, basically leave. Hoid essentially has 2 different personas that he tends to adopt when he's trying to hide and blend in with the people of a specific world. You have his beggar form and his fool form, which is basically the 2 that he goes. Hoid appears to be going around trying to gather as much different types of magic that he can throughout the Cosmere, which is why he was wanting to be an Elantrian. And in the Emperor's Soul, he's actually stealing the Emperor's scepter. They state in the Emperor's Soul that the scepter actually gives the Emperor the power to use all the different types of magic on Cell. So that's all I have for today. I was kind of rambling, kind of took some bits and pieces from all the different kind of side Cosmere stuff that I've been reading, kind of mashed it all into one video. If you've made it to this end, thank you. If you have, comment down below who your favorite Cosmere character is. Does not have to be somebody from Elantris or the Emperor's Soul. It could be anyone. Just don't spoil things from other books. You can name the characters, obviously, but don't be going into why you like them unless it's spoiler free. Once again, that's all I have for today. I'm JJ the Bearded Bookworm, and I'll see you in a couple days.